none of the Rust standard libraries have to do that. Um, but I looked up this thing called Cap and Proto, which is a serialization framework, but it's like you don't have to deserialize it because it's just the data. You just use the data.
Yeah.
And what I am now, I'm like, wait, why the hell do we just? Why do we do anything other than that ever? Like, can't we just send the data and then use the data? Like what?
No,
Like,
if you don't have 20 intermediary steps, how are you gonna hire a bunch of your like own kids and stuff and useless employees to do
I mean,
random bullshit for you?
it's crazy.
You can't do that if the technology works well.
Like Protobuf is literally just take the data and then copy the data onto the heap for no reason. Like it's literally just the data is I don't know. I don't understand at all, and
Yeah.
nobody else understands apparently because nobody's responded to my thing.
I guess not. One thing though with this server is there's like just so much activity now. It's like we need like a tag organization system or like an LLM priority algorithm. We need we need an addictive algorithm for the content of the server. Someone from like an algorithm design like if you made an app addictive at your job before, please help us make this addictive. Okay.
Do you make it bigger?
Yeah. All right. Are you reading this? Am I reading this?
Let's make you read it. I want to know
Okay.
who is Kenton Varda though. Is this just the buy link? Can you click on the buy link?
That's a good thing to know, actually.
So he looks like he has a MacBook and drinks lattes. That's my initial assessment, but
I mean, he's a tech lead at Cloudflare. They're pretty technical.
does he have any good opinions in his Twitter?
We'll see. We're banning egress fees. Our product SKU description, formerly known as egress. Okay, whatever. You apparently let a whole school in Chile sign up for a rapid account with email address because you never verified it. Want to create my own account? I said I had one. I said forgot password, and now I own school's admin account. Okay, that's kind of based. That's funny. Cap and Proto is more than a serialization language. You can define interfaces that work between programming languages, systems, and calling conventions. That's the problem it solves.
Really?
BTW audio is too low. Damn, dude.
I don't have the brain power to understand Cap and Proto. Yeah, I read the spec for the language, and the second half where it starts talking about interfaces and the inheritance and the stuff, my brain kind of shut off because I don't know how to deal with that already. Like, I also don't understand if you have a distributed system, like what. I'm thinking about messages and passing messages and like progressing state, but I guess maybe that's
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't understand. Like, as soon as you put a symbol and then say dot and then a function call after that, my brain is like, I don't know what this is anymore.
Dude, look how brilliant this audience is. Can you go more in depth about Protobuf? Like, it's nice to have actually smart people watching. I'm getting food.
What do you want to know about Protobuf? What would you do as an alternative? Well, okay, so it's like first I thought we'll use JSON to serialize things. Um, but Protobuf is JSON except with a schema. It generates a bunch of code to parse things and will throw out stuff that's not valid. You could do that for JSON. Um, but you know, JSON has like JSON schema, except the people who are making that make a new version every year, and they just want to make new versions of the schema specification format. So we don't really have JSON schema as far as I know. But with Protobuf, you write out definitions for messages, which are just types, and then you get them compiled to a language thing so you can parse them and send them. And it also has some RPC stuff, so you can generate that code. Um, but with Protobuf, at least the generator for Rust and all the generators I've seen, what they do is you receive the bytes of the message, and then as it goes through, it copies all the bytes into strings or whatever on the heap instead of just leaving them there, and then gives you back this struct with a bunch of pointers to things on the heap. And it's like, why? No comprendo. And so what cab proto does is it just leaves it in the buffer and then gives you pointers into the buffer. And if you want to modify a string, then you copy it and extend it and do whatever. But I haven't read super hard. I think it might be even a little cleverer than that.
Hmm.
But then cab proto does all this other stuff because it also has an RPC framework and it lets you like send a message and then send another message referring to content from the first message. So you can like or referring to the response from the first message without waiting for that message to come back. So you can do pipelining and you can so like if I give you two sentences where I'm like, hey, go collect thing A from this list and then add A to B. Like what happened there is I just sent you two messages as two sentences, but the second sentence referred to an object from the first. So you can do that with Cap and Proto in the thing. It's set up that way. Instead of having to wait for the first thing to come back so that you can then send it again.
Um, can I please reveal this vibe coder who says that if you learn programming, you're wasting your time? Yeah, I can do that sometime. I
What's he
feel like
what's he talking about?
apparently there's some. Well, yeah, that's the big debate right now, honestly, as the LLMs over the last few days have gotten so good, um, with like some of the, I don't know, they're getting really damn good. Um, so like, I guess I'd anticipate his argument is going to be, you should focus on architecture choice over and like design, specification less than like low level development details. I would probably anticipate that's what he's gonna say, but I don't know.
I feel like they're related, unfortunately. And you can't really do high level decisions without knowing the stuff that's going to actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, you definitely need a pretty strong development and background, and yeah, you can't vibe code like easily.
But I mean, like, if you need to design a system to be scalable, quote unquote, like, you can't just, oh, well, we'll just put it on Kubernetes and it'll be scalable. No, because, like, what is the bottleneck? What is the thing that actually needs to be scaled? What is the hard parts of the computation you're doing? Like, this is a hard problem. I don't, I still don't understand. Maybe vibe coding is like, my entire thinking goes the other direction, where it's like, I need to understand all the low level stuff well enough to know when I'm ready to just black box something and make the computer do it without fucking everything up. And I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's actually a very good take. Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to wait? I mean, I could ask, or we could start reading the article, but why do you hate Thrift made VD8Y? I'm very curious. I have not looked at Thrift.
What is thrift?
So Thrift is like Facebook. Okay, so Protobuf is Google, and Facebook has Thrift, which is like their Protobuf
Yeah.
with some slightly different decisions.
What did he say? Still waiting on it.
He just says he can't hear you.
Can barely. Sylvan voice mogged. um. Okay, singletons are possibly the single greatest obstacle to good object oriented design today. They are often at the root of huge intractable design flaws in large systems, and yet many programmers continue to use them and even insist they are a good design pattern. Many programmers point to the fact that the singleton pattern is a prominent part of the book Design Patterns, but don't realize at least one of the authors of that book, Eric Gama, is on record saying that it shouldn't have been. Okay, good start. Yeah, so don't use singletons, I guess. We argue that singletons are almost always bad design and almost never needed. In the few cases where singletons seem necessary, the environment pattern offers a reasonable alternative. Therefore, we recommend that programmers always avoid singletons and that programming languages ban them or at least provide an option to ban them.
Wow.
That's real interesting. Yeah. Okay. Table of contents. I guess we're reading this whole thing, so it doesn't really matter. Love you guys and appreciate both of y'all simulating our minds and not being another Slav grammar. Yeah. Damn, that's a good compliment. Thank you. I appreciate being like one of the few real people on YouTube. Well, I don't know. There's a bunch of people that I respect on YouTube. Actually, that's not. It's important to define exactly what we mean by a singleton. For the purposes of this argument, a singleton is any mutable state which is reachable without starting from the stack, reaching from static or global variables.
Wait, so that's just all globals.
All globals are singletons? Yeah, all global. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually a singleton is a class of which the author expects there will only ever be one instance. However, for our purposes, any object is globally accessible. Examples? Okay. A set of functions or static methods which manipulate some shared mutable state constitute a singleton. Okay, a set of functions. Okay. If a singleton A provided a reference to a mutable object B, then B is a singleton as well. This implies that every mutable member of a singleton collection is itself a singleton. Are you following this?
Yeah, this is just like the craziest object-oriented definition of global mutable state ever. What?
Transitively immutable object is not a singleton. This is like mathematical. If globally accessible, it is a constant. A standalone function that does not access any singletons is not itself a singleton, assuming that code is immutable.
Wait, let's go. That last one. A standalone function. So a function. What is this nonsense? Okay, it's a function. This guy is like has Java brain and he's talking about all these Java things. So a function that does not access any global mutable state is not a singleton and the code is immutable. So functions are not singletons. All right. That one threw me off.
Yeah. Functions are not singletons.
Like this whole idea that a function, like what?
Every mutable member of a singleton collection is itself a singleton. Okay. Okay. I was gonna say this, but like the audience is just so high quality, it does it for itself. Like, what's your favorite programming language? He's like, that's not a good question with all due respect, and he's even polite about it.
What the hell?
Yeah.
This isn't real. Are you sure this isn't an AI bot you have hired to make all these comments?
Why are people just so high quality here?
So it sounds like I haven't heard anything about language specific stuff, so I don't think it has to exist on the heap. Like I'm very curious because I use a lot of global state in my programs. And there's like a very few specific roles that it occupied. Like if you're in a server and you hear Control C, you set a global atomic flag that says we're shutting down now, and then the next time you pass through the main loop, you check if you're shutting down, and then you shut down.
Yeah, and I mean that seems like the cleanest and most reasonable way to handle that. I mean, like, well, let's see what they say, because maybe they'll describe something like that situation. Okay, most object-oriented programmers agree that global variables are bad, except for that case. What many do not realize is that singletons are, in fact, just a way of disguising global variables in an object-oriented veneer!
No! I thought we were safe!
Oh my god. A singleton is essentially a Trojan horse containing an old-fashioned C-style procedural design trying to make its way into the object-oriented fortress. As a result, it suffices that all the game design difficulties that object-oriented designs have intended to solve, which we describe below. Okay.
Man, I don't want any C-style procedural design getting into my immaculate fortress of object-oriented code.
Yeah.
That shit's garbage. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe it's worth addressing this. Uh, how is the question not good? I'm curious. Well, the one thing is like, it's not an especially deep question. Like everyone kind of goes through this phase in like when they get into programming where they kind of learn like what all the languages are and what do they do. You know, like you just like research what languages are out there, and like I don't know, it's just like a beginner like meme thing to do to talk about all the esoteric languages. Like we all went through that phase like early on in the programming journey, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, like the charitable interpretation of that question is, "Hey, I don't know anything yet. Where should I start?" Or
Yeah.
like, "What are some things?" But you could have just asked that. Like the way that it was asked, it just sounds like the low quality effort slop that people do when they're not trying to think.
No offense.
No offense. Yeah, I mean,
um okay. Stop. Uh, when code uses a singleton, it effectively has a new input, which is not declared in its interface. Okay. Um, this can be confusing to users of the interface. They can no longer tell what resources the code might access when the code does access a singleton resource. Oh, it is a lot like a global. The effects may be surprising to the user who did not expect it, and even if the user knows that the code must be accessing a resource, they cannot see how it obtains the access. So, right, it's like,
yeah, this like when I'm reading object-oriented code, I have this problem where it's like, okay, where's the part of the code that actually does the thing? And I just cannot find it. And I have to look through seven, like I keep holding down control and clicking things, trying to find where the actual code is. I always traverse at least 5 files before finding it. And then like it's totally separated from the context of where it's used and like what's going on around it. Um, but that happens without singletons for me.
yeah.
But like this whole pattern of sneakily passing state around, you know,
Often the result of all this is that a singleton heavy designs are uncomfortable to use because it's difficult to form a mental model of what the code is actually doing. When inputs and outputs are obvious, the user can fill in the blanks to imagine the code's implementation. And when they can write their own code around that model. When the workings of a library are mysterious to the caller is forced to understand by trial and error and will have trouble trusting that the library does the right thing under all circumstances. Singletons allowed objects to communicate without ever being introduced to each other. This sort of spooky action at a distance can be extremely confusing. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, all right. I mean, I guess that's facts.
Singletons make code hard to test. Yeah, that's the thing with reading the opinion of a good developer. You're just like, yep, yep. You're right, I'm stupid. Why did I ever do it like that? Um, Unit testing a module in isolation required the ability to mock out all resources which that module accesses. Singletons, however, often cannot be mocked, which makes code that uses them hard to test. Okay. Do you write a lot of tests for your project currently?
No.
Yeah, so that's not an issue for me. One of the most well, okay, that probably should be writing way better tests.
Well, I mean, it's like this is like a whole issue. Like, when do we actually need tests versus when can you just make the program so simple it's obviously correct, and then just like
That's
if
like
you don't
suckless software.
what
It's like suckless software, yeah.
I mean, if you don't have, I don't know what that is, but like if you just have one primary code path which gets executed every time you run the thing, like you're gonna notice the bug while you're developing the thing. Like, just keep everything simple.
Yeah.
Like, I can hear Carlos, don't use mocks, Eric. What are you doing? Get rid of those. Stop. That's not.
Yeah, Carlos would say that. Lower variables, my beloved global struct called state.
I do that.
That's why is that a bad idea though?
Well, I mean, like this testing thing is one. I mean, to test, you have to like have all of the inputs be known, and static is just like inconvenient in most languages to test. Like if you treat your boundary of the thing that you're testing as the binary you produce, then it's fine, right? Because the binary you pass all the arguments, you can't. I mean, in the same way that like having a stack variable that just gets referenced a lot is fine. But like you see, like the whole testing thing is kind of just like it's inconvenient because the language sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I can see probably situations where tests would be useful that I'm not anticipating. I mean, like I don't actually have any practical reason to think that other than like a lot of big companies and developers I respect have test batteries. But I guess like that's useful if you have a bunch of idiots crawling over your code base.
Well, also some things are just more complicated. Like
Yeah.
like there are legitimate high surface area things that need to be correct and are complicated to just know are right.
Yeah. Um, forcing this guy's will to learn about singletons. Why can you not mock singletons? Verify API contracts. That's true, I guess. Yeah. It's up to you, guy.
I mean, honestly, when I hear stuff about contracts now, I kind of just think like, why is what you're building so complicated that you need a contract to like? Can't you just do the thing? Like, I guess that's really without any context not very helpful.
Yeah.
But like, I think about at work when I have to make API calls to our vendor backend, and it's like I had to fill out 20 arguments. Most of them felt pretty meaningless. Um, it was just crazy. Like, why isn't the data model just simple? Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical of contracts. They give me bad
Yeah.
energy.
All right. Good to know. Man, this is like what a good source of information. Um, let's see. One of the most common examples is file system access. Good unit tests usually should not access the file system because doing so wastes resources, makes them the test non-hermetic. What is non-hermetic?
I think that's impure, but I don't. Maybe that's just
I'm
like
gonna
a
learn some
religious thing.
Greek today. Where's my dictionary? Uh, complete and all right. So just good, basically. So incomplete. I there's more nuance to that word, I guess, and could accidentally damage if the code being tested has bugs. Unfortunately, most platforms API expose the file system as a singleton via the open call, and modules which access the system generally call this directly. These modules are thus hard to test. Usually, the test code must take pains to set up and tear down some sort of temporary directory, and must hope that code under the test does not access any other location. The solution to the problem is to refactor the module to replace file name arguments with file reference arguments. Instead of calling a method and passing in a file object, you pass a pointer to a file or dictionary object. No, directory object, sorry. Assuming file and directory are abstract interfaces, they can then be mocked for the sake of unit tests. Okay, I mean, this guy seems to like his tests. He's,
Yeah.
that seems reasonable. Singletons also. Why did you sound like not enthusiastic about that? Is it because you're gonna have to like?
I mean, there's just some situations where you have to do it.
Yeah, it's
But like yeah, no, literally at work the other day, some of Apashi's Rust code for Parquet, um, like it wouldn't let me hand it an IO reader or whatever the Rust thing is.
yeah.
It made me pass it a string to the file, and what that did is I literally had to create an intermediate file and then give it that. It was so stupid. I was like, what are we doing here?
Singletons also inhibit testability by allowing independent tests to unexpectedly influence each other. So now you get like a combinatorial testing problem. You have to you have to run however many tests factorial you have, every combination, and check it and then average. So that's ass. When running multiple tests in singleton process, if one test alters the state of a singleton and forgets to clean up those changes, all tests which run after it could be affected, possibly causing false negatives or false positives. Yeah, that's disastrous. So basically, like, if your test is mutating the singleton, then you forgot to clean up. How's that the singleton's fault?
Why are you making your code so that you have to clean something up? Like, that's just, you're asking for bugs. Like, yeah, that's the problem is that, yeah, that's the singleton's fault.
Wait, can you elaborate elaborate on that a little bit more? The singletons, just by nature of its design.
I mean, if you're making your program in a way that, so like here's what happens. You have the state machine, which is your program, right? It's like if you're in a test, you're setting up a stack frame, you're doing some things, you're putting another stack frame on, you're tearing it down, right? And that state machine is pretty easy to keep in a consistent state because stack frames are easy and like languages have ways to clean these things up. Now, when you introduce a second state machine, which I guess is the singleton, and your important state machine actually modifies the state of the second machine, now you have to worry about keeping the two things in sync. And anytime you have two complex bits of state and you have to keep them in sync, you've kind of fucked up because now you have to think really hard and you're going to mess up and they're not going to be consistent because they never are. And that's what bugs are.
Yeah, damn, good way to put it. This guy is saying putting all the global state in a struct for all program data is the best thing to do.
Now, I guess maybe an insight I have into this now is that, like, if there is only one state machine for something and it happens to be on the global and not in my stack, I'm fine with that. Like, my global flag that says we're shutting down now, that is where it belongs. There's not two things that are fighting with each other anymore, so I guess it's not a problem. But
Yeah.
this, where it's like, yeah, like you're touching the file system, yeah, all right.
And also, like, why is it really an issue to like pollute, like, especially if it's in a struct, you're not polluting like your namespace or anything like that. It's like that seems like a pretty clean solution.
What do you mean?
Seems like a lot of disagreement and agreement over the singleton. Duff down whiskey. What is Dufftown whiskey? Is that some kind of expression? Anyway, when creating a singleton, the author is making the assumption that no program will ever have any reason to have more than one instance of the class. This is a big assumption that often proves wrong later on when the requirements change. Unfortunately, once a considerable amount of code has been built around the singleton, it can become infeasible to convert the singleton into a regular multi-instance class. Usually, the assumptions that only one instance exists runs deep in all code around it. Often, rather than refactor so much code, the developers will instead solve their problems by adding features to the singleton. For example, a singleton may be extended with a thread local behavior so that some code will temporarily modify the singleton while calling some other code. That's getting gnarly. On a singleton may be extended to behave differently depending on where it is called, so that if two subsystems which previously shared singletons can be isolated from each other, these features add significant complication to the singleton. Yet usually
I feel the pain.
just lead to deeper problems. For example, the thread local modifications don't work with asynchronous code, and modifying behavior based on caller doesn't work if different instances of the same class require different behavior from the singleton. That is complicated as fuck. Yeah.
That's facts.
All right. Something wrong with the audio. It's very low. Is there a way to change the gain on this mic? This fucking thing might have firmware. I don't see any volume slider. It's like that, but that's all I can figure out. God God fucking damn it. Why do they always make technology worse? You're just gonna have to turn your volume up. Or get that Chrome extension which like warps the audio using an FFT in the browser. And makes everything sound shitty but like 10% louder. Alright. Singletons are a form of ambient authority. All code running in the same process potentially. That's a great saying. That's a great way to put it. Has access to a singleton. Therefore, if any one singleton anywhere in a process happens to provide access to a sensitive resource, then all code in the process must be trusted not to abuse that singleton. Ambient authority. Because most platform APIs have traditionally provided sensitive resources such as file system access as singletons, it has long been impossible to run untrusted code within a privileged process. Many programmers assume that this is simply law of programming. Executing evil code is always a security problem. This is not true. As this site is dedicated to showing, in a memory-safe programming environment with no singletons, evil code cannot get access to any resource unless it explicitly receives a reference from its caller. Thus, as long as you are careful about what references you pass, running evil code is perfectly fine. Furthermore, because sandboxing code is so trivial in such an environment, programmers will naturally tend to sandbox their own code, which is useful if their code has bugs and can be exploited by malicious third parties. It was Dave who did it. Yeah, you want everyone isolated in case you got one person who sucks. Embrace MOV, EAX, and EBX.
Where? What? I'm too dumb.
Help us, Holy See, enjoyer. Man, this audience is just like next level.
Oh, those are registers and instructions.
Oh. Damn. Yeah, that's just assembly. For my tiny OOP brain. Assembly unknown normie. Fuck! It's been too long. I've never actually taken a compilers class. Yeah, I'm a fucking normie. Fuck! Let's see. In order to get these security benefits, every singleton present in the environment must be benign. That is, it must not provide access to any sensitive resource, and ideally, it must not provide any way for objects to use it in an uncontrolled communication channel. Preventing communication channels is not always strictly necessary, but allows you to be assured that two separate instances of evil code cannot communicate unless explicitly allowed to do so. Kind of like non-explicit constants in a way. Like, as long as you just tell everyone to do it and they do it, it's fine, but you might want your language to enforce it somehow. I just find their OOP talk such brain rot. The easiest way to ensure that all singletons are yeah, this is really brain rot content. The easiest way to ensure that all singletons are benign is to disallow singletons altogether. If singletons are allowed at all, then the behavior must be a way to audit all singletons in a code base. If the code base has many singletons, and unfortunately evidence suggests that following singletons usually leads to this. Yup. Then this audit becomes impossible, and the only option is to avoid running untrusted code. This is some big brain shit that this person's observing. Thus, the million-dollar question is, which is easier, avoiding executing untrusted code or avoiding using singletons? If you want singletons, you have to ban untrusted code. If you want untrusted code, you have to ban singletons. As described in the other points in this argument, singletons are often bad design anyway. On the other hand, the ability to easily run untrusted code has huge benefits in a world built around collaborations and delegation. The choice should be obvious. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you just read all of this without all the object-oriented words, which is what I'm doing, this is just straight facts.
Okay, but what about constants though?
Well, they're not singletons.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
pre-read, pre-read.
so they win. Even complex objects can be constants as long as they are transitively immutable. And as long as they have exactly the same value regardless of the environment in which the code is running. Thus, a constant cannot be initialized by reading data from a file on the hard drive unless the data file is read at compile time and is embedded into the compiled program. Okay. Note the code itself is kind of constant. Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it. You don't know what a singleton factory abstract class adapter is, bro? Go home. uh, what? Please don't start driving a taxi and purchase a gun and start smoking and lock yourself in your apartment and get a mohawk.
Because of the singletons.
Yeah, thanks for warning me about that. I was pretty close to falling into that reality until you said that. What does that even mean? Even though like insults on this channel are really creative. Or I don't even know what that was. Okay, what about open to standard out? There's some of the worst examples of singletons. These are some. Okay, open. No using open anymore. Or maybe you can use it, I don't know. As a singleton means that any piece of code anywhere in your program might access the file system with the same rights as any other part of the program. This makes it basically impossible to execute untrusted code. It also makes code hard to test as described above and makes code inflexible because it depends on a concept of a single global file system. What if you want the program to operate on a file in a temporary in-memory file system or a system in the cloud? What if you explicitly do not want the program to operate on the local file system because you want to be able to relocate the process to a different machine? He's thinking DevOps. Instead of providing open main, should receive a reference to a directory implementation representing the file system main. Should then pass on that reference only to the parts of the code which need it, or use some other directory implementation as it prefers to solve the above problems. As for standard out, the same thing applies. If you're writing an interactive console program, the last thing you want is for some random library that you happen to be using to start writing to standard out.
Yes, oh my god, that's so fucking annoying.
Without any way for you to stop it. So standard out should be passed to main and should not be accessible to anyone else until yes. Yeah. Why
What
would
a
anyone
take.
in a library do that?
Dude, I was using this library. It was Paramiko in Python, and it does SFTP and SSH, and it keeps bitching about some stupid algorithm got depreciated that I'm not even using. And literally, okay, before I say import, I say I replace the system-wide standard out with none. I import it, and then I put the standard out back, so it'll shut the fuck up. Why are you doing this to me? Yeah.
That's awesome. Just cut out their ability to send you messages.
This is, this is just this like whole like Zig making you pass allocators around. I think is absolutely just the right move for this same kind of reason. Yeah, this article is banger.
Yeah, yeah. And Zig looks really good. Um, just joined and I already know that this is some actually you have to handicap yourself so that everything satisfies my audit autism article. Bro, I don't think so. I think this person's kind of yeah. I think this person's onto something. I don't think this is like here try my super obscure functional programming lambda calculus method of solving that. This is in fact like well, okay. In practice, everyone acknowledges that debug logging should be available to every piece of code. We make an exception for it. The exact theoretical basis for the exception for those who care can be provided in a few ways. From a security standpoint, debug logging is a benign singleton. It cannot be used as a communication channel because it is write only, and it clearly impossible to cause any sort of damage by writing to a debug log, since debug logging is not a factor in the program's correctness. Even if a malicious module spams the log, messages from this module can easily be filtered out, especially since debug logs normally identify exactly what module produced each message. Sometimes they may even provide a stack trace. Therefore, there is no problem with providing it. An analogous argument can be made to show that debug logging does not harm readability, testability, or maintainability. Another theoretical justification for debug logging says that the debug log function is really just a no-op that happens to be observed by the debugger. When no debugger is running, the function does nothing. Debugging in general obviously breaks the entire object capability model, but it is obviously a privileged operation. Yeah, that's an interesting stance on that, because like it is a singleton technically.
You know, this whole like there's another article I found recently about just like having a capabilities model instead of an access control model for security, where it's like and all that is instead of having like the file system where you have to declare that you have some sort of identity and then it's going to check that your identity is okay to do the thing.
Yeah.
You can only do things that you're given access to.
Yeah.
And that just like sounds much nicer.
Yeah. Okay. Singletons, which do not provide any sensitive access, are fine. Security-wise, this may be valid. However, if singletons are not allowed at all, then all singletons in a program must be audited to ensure they present no risk. If the number of singletons grows large, or if the language does not provide a good way to enumerate all singletons present in some source code, auditing can become infeasible. That's really interesting. Furthermore, the non-security problems with singletons can apply even to benign singletons. Yeah, like the yeah. What's the TLDR and loggers being singletons? Well, debugging is logging, which is a singleton, but they're okay with that for a bunch of reasons. Always be used with caution. Problems occur when developers overuse styles, syntax sugar because they're scared of writing code. That's so wise. Is that the Carlos we know?
What is it? Where is this?
Convenience in language should always be used with caution. Problems occur when developers overuse syntax sugar because they're scared of writing code. Get this guy a Nobel Prize. Wait, are you the British Carlos that we know? Or is your name just also Carlos? It's me, boys. I knew it was Carlos. Yeah, you can just tell when someone's like a 10x engineer. They just like ooze a certain type of energy. All right. There are multiple approaches to using ACLs in this way. In one approach, ACLs control which modules can call which other modules. For instance, module A may be able to call module B, which in turn may be able to call module C, but module A cannot call module C directly. This allows a trusted module B to provide a safe interface between untrusted module A and sensitive module C. A major problem with this approach is that it can lead to confused deputy problems. For example, we say that we have some code we don't trust, but we don't need it to be able to access one directory in the file system, so we have carefully set up, but we do need it. We needed to access one directory in the file system, so we have carefully set up ACLs, I guess, so that when it calls open, the call is only permitted if it is for a file inside this particular directory. Great, but now let's say someone who we trust has created a helper function for reading files that looks like read entire file. Should our untrusted code be able to access this? Interesting question. Well, fundamentally, this is just a utility function, not something which provides access to protected resources, but on the other hand, it allows the caller to read any file on the file system. We obviously don't want our ACLs to restrict that read entire file can read because we wouldn't know how to restrict it, so instead we have to get ACLs to restrict calls to read entire file from untrusted code. We can either prevent untrusted code from calling this function at all, which would limit the usefulness of having the helper in the first place, or we can painstakingly ensure that we've set up ACLs so that our trusted code can only call read entire file on the same file name on which it can call open. If we forget to restrict access at all, we have produced a security hole. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Solar. This is the guy from the. He's the kid who made the Ariga game engine.
access control lists are such a yeah, like this whole strategy of duplicating your security rules into a bunch of lists and then like putting somebody in charge of managing the lists from an organizational standpoint is just so annoying. Like I mean like a company. Like we have probably a million ACLs come to think of it at my company already. And just doing anything is like I have to go convince the lords to let me have this password to this one thing. And then it just like I everybody who's been at the company for years has like accumulated all the passwords and I have to go find someone with more mana points to me to do the thing. And
Yeah, that
like
is really
things
just
never get revoked.
dude, you have to figure out like the person with all the passwords and just steal their whole file. That's the only reasonable action to take. Um, um, that's enough joking. I'm walking in with you. Okay. The approach to access control simply isn't scalable. As the API grows, more and more holes like this appear to have been fixed by ACL changes, yet the vast majority of code, things string manipulation, math collections, and even IO helpers like read entire file, does not present any inherent security risk. So reviewing it all to look for problems is a waste of time. True. The object capability model clearly separates benign utility code from sensitive resource providers in order to make it much easier to filter for the sensitive stuff. That's clever, yes. And a more feasible approach to using ACLs, such as the approach used by Java, large groups of objects can be instantiated in a single sandbox, and any calls crossing the sandbox boundary must be checked against an ACL. That's interesting, actually. This approach has been successful for things like Java applets, but it is difficult to use. In this approach, an object is either inside the sandbox or it is not, providing only two security levels. Generally, the ACL is such that objects in the sandbox have practically no permissions, while objects outside of it have unlimited permissions. Setting up file-grained sandboxes is too difficult, so collaboration between many entities with various trust levels is hard. No one ever sandboxes their own code, even though that code would help protect against bugs. Even though this would help protect against bugs. Other parts of this site compare ACLs to capability more generally. All the general principles apply at the object level. Okay. Tired of submitting tickets. Okay. Here's our object tree. Passing a reference through the whole call stack is often too painful. The claim is that during development, some object X may suddenly discover that it needs access to an object Y. In order to provide access without a singleton, a path P must be cut through the object graph to communicate for reference.
Dude, if you have an object graph, you fucked up. This is called Jonathan Blow calls this a pointer jungle. And I think that's the best word. Is this a counter argument or are we still saying why singletons are bad?
I'm not sure.
Where are we in the table of contents? We're passing a reference through the whole call.
Counter arguments.
Yeah, okay, we're counter arguments still. Passing a reference through the whole time. Okay, dude, if your stack is so deep that you can't like that's just a nonsense Java problem, I feel like.
If you've just got too many objects in your
No, I mean
jungle.
if your stack is so deep that you need to like that you can't be bothered to type out the parameters anymore. Like use a struct or like don't have it, this is just such a crazy situation. Your stack shouldn't be.
Yeah, I feel like we can. Okay, uses singletons would allow some changes to be made more quickly than would otherwise be possible. Sometimes true, but the changes in question are almost always hacks to solve problems in the short term.
Yeah, dude, unless you really know what you want. Like all those rules that he said earlier about listen, people assume this and it's not false. Like if you actually know all of those are good assumptions. No, he's just right, guys. He's just right.
Is this the book club we were promised? I mean, it is somewhat like. I do want to do this kind of recurring technical thing, like reading like articles and stuff. I feel like is great for my understanding of programming. Plus, it's good to hear people's feedback, but like, I'm also down to eventually do like other book club things because like if we're reading like a smart book about I don't know metacognition or something, that's like pseudo that's useful, you know. That would also be a really fun thing to do on stream and talk about what people are doing in the way of other elements in their life. But yeah, um, I feel lost on what to do with my future. What's the advice you'd give to someone who wants to pursue CS? Do you have advice for CS people?
Dude, here's the situation, okay? And this is like the situation for any career. I can't give you career advice. You have to go, like, okay, careers, the whole thing of a career is that there's this universe out here, right? And some things to do are very hard and complicated. And I can't explain them to you. You have to go learn about them. And that's what the career is learning about the thing and getting mastery in it. So, like, you're at the situation where you don't have any of that mastery yet. And, like, I guess your assumption is because I know more than you do, that I will be able to show you some sort of like thing to learn first to like master things more quickly or better or somehow. But like mastery is knowing all the things. Just start learning the things and then you will have the mastery. Like I
It's
don't
true.
like if you don't know which way to go, you just gotta start asking questions and looking at really specific things. Like
Just take something and try to figure out how it works. That's to give one piece of starting advice. I mean, reading a lot of open source code.
I mean a lot of open source code is garbage though.
Well, pick a good project. Like pick
How
like
does he know it's
SQLite.
good?
I mean, you could have AI generate a list of the
Dude, the
famous.
AI is gonna pick out the good code.
I mean, there are code bases that are known for being good. I mean, like
I mean, okay, think about it this time, or think about it this way, right? Like the point of our field is to generate value for people. Maybe start there.
yeah, generate some value.
How are you going to generate value? And be very skeptical of anyone who's telling you something that you can't justify as being a way of creating value.
Okay. Um, it's hard to argue this point. Banning singletons requires maintaining many, many more pointers. Just one many. Sorry, just many more.
Got excited there about the pointers.
Increasing memory usage is hard to argue this point without some sort of numbers. That's a fair point. No, bring the statistics. Neither side of this debate has produced any. Our intuition is that the extra pointers won't significantly increase memory usage because they are generally only attached to control objects, not low level data. That makes sense, yeah. Like the control objects are going to be carrying most of the data with them. It's not like you're fucking dereffing 5 billion times to pull out like rendering pixel coordinates or anything. Um, Also, the environment patterns compromised below does not incur any significant point input. In my case, there really should only be one of my singleton. That's kind of what singleton means. Nearly everyone who has defined a singleton was thinking exactly this. Sometimes they are right, but all too often their code involves in unexpected ways that prove them wrong after it's too late. Don't let a lack of foresight lead you to paint yourself into a corner. Avoid singletons from the start. Besides, the readability, testability, and security arguments apply, even if there are really. I think this part of this is really like good to say. Like you can start off like a singleton in a very simple context probably doesn't seem that bad. It's not like you're like have a whole project built up and you're like, all right, we're gonna implement like a bunch of singletons now. It's like you would kind of build this up slowly and it would become a disaster. It would sneak up on you.
Maybe. I mean, I think that this guy's like, if the audience is people who are figuring out how to do things, this is just really exceptional advice. Because, like, yeah. I mean, most of the time, like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking when I was learning Java and I was new, it's like, yeah, I just did this a lot and it was stupid. And this guy is, if I had read this, it'd be like, oh, yes, I would have been great.
Yeah. Yeah. Reading like what like commentary of how really good people code is very important. I feel like I should do it more because like there are some people have some blogs out there that are like mind blowing, dude. I feel like I should. That's a better source of like development education than YouTube is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Ryan Fleury has saved me months at least.
yeah,
It was $5 a month. Go get Ryan Fleury's blog, guys. It's called Digital Grove. Best thing ever.
yeah.
You know, I would love if anybody has blog recommendations or if you know any good blogs.
Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah, I actually this is this. I'm such a workflow bro, but like I want to make a video about the RSS reader situation and like have people post their blog reading lists because just being able to pull those all in centrally, see the titles of them, and have like kind of an algorithmic curation would make me way more likely to read
Yeah. The algorithms, is that important?
them. Algorithms are important,
I
dude.
only
They
read
control us.
algorithm approved content.
You have to admit the YouTube algorithm is absolutely banger. The YouTube algorithm produces straight gems. Um, just don't read design patterns. Okay. Yeah. That was a wholesome interaction with that purple guy. Handmade community are valuable. Ginger Bill, crazy good value. First 30 episodes of Handmade Hero. Yeah, those guys are all so smart.
Dude, I was a month ago, I was watching Ginger Bill talk about Rust. He was giving like the most, oh, well, you know, the ownership system doesn't feel right to me. In capitalism, there's like ownership. And then, but there's also like a side to capitalism, which is like family, where you like have to provide for your kids. And it was like an hour-long video, yes. And I gave up halfway through. But what I realized in the last month is that he was totally right. And he was just shedding absolute wisdom, and I was missing it. It was crazy. It was like worse than the English books that you have to read in school, but it was actually good.
That's so weird. Maybe he just has like a very strange communication style that's like very loosey goosey.
I mean, he was just like figuring out as he was saying it, I think.
Yeah, Jonathan Blow and Casey Muratori are also great. Soding is good too. I also really like Derek Martin, sorry, from YouTube channel Code Opinion. That's more like web infrastructure stuff. But if that's your thing.
YouTube algorithm nonstop trying to get me to run down the Joe Rogan alt alpha male pipeline. I'm not slightly interested in any of it.
We all have had that temptation. We all have the same algorithm. I have implemented a context struct which passed to like 80% of my functions, which doesn't feel like a good solution. Not sure if there's a better way to do it though.
Well, the context struct isn't a singleton though. Like yeah, I have that same kind of thing where like sometimes you just have context and that's a real thing. I was talking with Game Engine German kid. I do not know his name. I just know his picture on Discord.
Yeah, what is his name? He commented earlier, right?
We were talking about having very wide structs with many fields, and he had some bad energy about it. And we hadn't quite gotten to the bottom of what was going on.
Yeah, are you here, man? You pass it around. Is context easier to follow? Well, I mean, it's explicit where you're passing the context. If you're like referencing a bunch of globals, like you can't really make the connection in your mind as easily. Like you can follow this through the.
You know, there's something. Jonathan Blow in his language apparently, he has like context that you pass around built into the language, and it's implicitly passed. And it has stuff like a temporary allocator, and you can extend it with other local things that you want.
Yeah.
And I have mixed feelings about that for a lot of the reasons about this article. I mean, it's the same thing. Ryan Fleury in his codes, he has thread local scratch arenas and thread local coordination stuff for multi-threading, and it's like, on the one hand it's sad because it's invisible and I don't know that it's there until I happen to stumble into the file defining it or see it used, and I'm like, what? But once you know about it, like having a base level global or thread local context thing is just so nice. I don't know.
Yeah. What's SOA again?
Destructive array.
Destructive arrays, right?
Where's that?
Fat structs plus destructive arrays.
Oh yeah.
Power. Fat structs are awesome. Yeah. Context struct isn't that bad. All right, compromise. Singletons are mostly useful in implementing hack solutions that are acknowledged to be bad design. Damn, roasted, but which can be implemented quickly in order to solve an urgent problem or prototype an idea. Singletons, like any hack, cause the greatest problems when they are allowed to stay in the system long term, but the importance of hacks in the real world is irrefutable. You know, someone is like a smart programmer when they're like giving you the you when something is like too dogmatic, like you would never use this ever, you can tell he's smart just by the fact that he acknowledged that sometimes you just want to call an like an input or a print. um Ideally we'd like a way to enable the power of singletons for hack purposes while preventing those hacks from being ingrained in the system. Selection
Dude.
covers.
Oh, he's gonna. Oh man, I'm so riveted now. This is so interesting because I like have been thinking about this problem. So for my personal project, I want to be able to do select statements that like join across databases and like are from different sources, and I want to be really nebulous and like powerful in terms of being able to select from different sources and things, right? But that comes with a lot of this shared mutable state scariness. Um, and I want to be able to save the queries that I'm doing and reuse them and make them function somehow. But it's like, so here's my like dilemma. If I write a query and I make some sort of way for you to explicitly put parameters in, um, parameterizing queries is just like a silly task. It's work, and it's like, why can't I just write the query and then have it work? So what I'm thinking is, why can't I just provide some sort of way to like, you give somebody a query and then you can like ad hoc swap out parts inside of it without necessarily needing them to be parameters. I don't super know how that's going to work out. But like this whole issue of like, yeah, like we need this hack thing. We need to be able to just efficiently do things. And I'm wondering if there's some, well, maybe they'll just tell us. Maybe there's some clever way of being able to have that flexibility without all the drawbacks of either overexpressiveness or like singletons where you just don't know what the hell's going on.
Someone real quick, someone sent this website. Have you seen this? Is a motherfucking website. This is actually Barrow's website. I'm shocked at that coincidence, but um this is like his personal site. I think it's worth a look. It's kind of funny. Um You probably built websites and think this shit is special. You think a 13 megabyte parallax alive homepage is going to get some fucking award banner that you can glue to the top of the corner of the site. You think your 40-pound jQuery file and 83 polyfills give IE7 a boner because it finally has a box shadow? Wrong, motherfucker. Let me describe your perfect ass website. Shit's lightweight and loads fast, fits in your shitty screens, looks the same in all your shitty browsers, motherfucking accessible to every asshole who visits your site. Shit's legible and gets your fucking point across. Yeah, this is I'm pretty sure this is Barrow's site. Yeah, that's funny. uh okay. Environment pattern, aka dynamic scoping. Unix, and to a lesser extent Windows, has a notion of an environment containing key value pairs, which are variables that are automatically propagated from one process to another. By default, a process inherits its environment from its parent process, But the parent process can also choose to provide a new or modified environment to the child instead. In many ways, environment variables are like singletons. They're ambiently available. Any piece of code can read or write an environment variable without declaring publicly that it does so. An environment variable can communicate any arbitrary text, and then combined with other global namespaces, especially the file system, can communicate references to arbitrary objects in those namespaces. Let's imagine an object-oriented version of the environment concept, say that each environment variable is actually a reference to an object implementing some abstract interface. Also, say that the environment is not per process, but rather per thread, so that it may be overridden for a particular function call. Let's even go ahead and define an interface for the environment itself using interface object get string name. And imagine that we can override it like this. Okay, so we get the old environment. We make a new object. We make a new environment. Object get. Okay, use the environment while executing some code. Okay, does that make sense? This presents some of the usual singleton-related problems, but significantly mitigated. It's hard to tell if a function call's behavior might be affected by the environment, and if so, how effects caused by environment differences can be hard to understand and debug. However, by installing a custom environment implementation which logs calls to get, a caller can determine exactly what variables the callee accesses. It's easy for tests to accidentally depend on environment variables, potentially making them non-hermetic. However, a good test harness can prevent this by setting up a clean environment. Meanwhile, it's easy for a test to inject mocks in the place of any environment variable, right? Once a large amount of code depends on an environment variable, if it is later discovered that different parts of the large system need to use different values for that variable, this can be tricky to achieve. However, while tricky, it's not impossible, as the calling code can be updated to pass different environments to the new subsystems. If the environment variable contains a reference to an object that implements privileged functionality, passing it to untrusted code could be a security risk. This could easily happen by accident. However, a sandbox environment can easily be installed where necessary. Fortunately, programmers are not likely to sandbox their own code with this scheme, but at least they can sandbox untrusted code without placing it in a separate process. This approach gives us most of the benefits of singletons, and in rare cases where they are really desirable, while mitigating the drawbacks. Note that this proposal is effectively an explicit form of dynamic scoping. That's interesting. To understand source code of any software, it's important to first find all the globals and singletons in that, as it is the root of all other objects, also stacks, and literally the state of the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's just annoying because where are they? Like, you go to a C code base, where are all the static? We don't know.
Yep. Carlos has got some things to say. It was a suite of benchmarks which generated many different use cases, and each one of the memory footprint and cache hits were less optimal. He's talking about the fat struct tests. So that one way of writing code cannot be optimal for all the use cases. Everything is a trade-off.
Really? The fat trucks? This was an SOA? Was this... Well, man. I haven't been following. I can't.
Yeah. Oh. From the original author.
Is the author of this article?
Better motherfucking no of that fucking website. Yeah, you're all good, Big Smoke. I'll have to check that out sometime. I'm really surprised that that like I guess tech circles are small. Barrow's got his work out there. That is say that we have a class foo. Oh. One major problem with basic environment pattern is presented above is it seems very procedurally oriented. In object-oriented systems, it's probably more appropriate to inherit the environment at object construct time.
No.
rather than at method call time. That is, say that we have a class foo which calls into another class bar. Foo's constructor takes an instance of bar to use, but what if bar's methods are affected by the environment and the environment we want to give to bar differs from the one we want to give to
Dude,
foo?
this is just like such a nightmare. I don't want to DI my fucking context to every object that I construct. What are we? Maybe I just don't understand objects.
If we're using the basic environment pattern, we must adapt bar such that it records a reference to the environment in its constructor. Oh no. And that uses the reference during other method calls rather than being used in the current environment passed from the caller. However, if bar inherited the environment at a time of construction rather than a time of method calls, everything would work fine.
Dude, okay. Anytime, I think dependency injection is 90% of the time just not the thing that I want.
But there's
Like,
that 10%.
well, but like anytime, I mean, this is the other part of the reason why when I look at object-oriented code, I just can't find the code that does the thing. Is because people will construct an object at the very beginning, they'll pass it 7 arguments that are just going to live forever, and then
Yeah.
they'll go do shit. And it's like, and then they'll like call those 17 objects because, oh, well, that was actually the slot for the thing that's going to do this thing later. Don't you know what's going to happen later? Right? Isn't it obvious what's going to happen later before we read the code that actually uses the thing? It's just like, come on. Ugh.
In practice, constructing time environment inheritance is likely to be desirable much more often than call time environment inheritance, especially for event driven systems, EDA, using asynchronous callbacks. Unfortunately, construction time inheritance is harder to implement without built in support for the programming language. This is a compromise. To be clear, the environment pattern is not ideal. Well designed code should avoid it, preferring explicit constructor and method arguments instead. The environment pattern is useful as a temporary solution to link together two pieces of a system that were not linked before. Over the long term, such use of environment variables should be replaced with explicit parameters. Yeah.
Carlos looks like he is waiting to be prompted about dependency injection.
Yeah, is Carlos. I have to go in like 10 minutes to meet someone, but does anyone have any like it would be cool to get Carlos live for a second if you're available, Carlos. But he might be doing something in a busy office or something. He might be slacking off. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Man, I have to figure out some organizational things like yeah, this was a very good article. And I feel like we should make this a recurring thing. Like reading technical articles is really helpful. It's also really helpful to. Oh, I think Carlos is. Hello,
Hey,
Hello?
Carlos.
I'm just in the middle of. I've been playing around with the templating compiler because I'm gonna be on a plane on Monday and I need a project to be working on.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, yeah, I should be able to show it to everyone soon. It's working pretty well. It's quite nice. It's like the the language itself has it's just a templating language, so it's very minimal. But the plugins are used to you use a plugin to say like for me I'm working in Go, so and I want it to at dev time run it so they hot reload, so it generates the HTML on the fly with a little bit of something that can deal with the hot reloading on one side, and the server side can ping the hot reload and refresh everything while also rebuilding itself in the back end.
Right.
But then also in production, it compiles it down to Go string builders. But the idea is that the plugin system is WASM. So you just define the way that you want the LSP to work for the language, the compiler to work for the generator to work for the language, and then formatting as well. So I was thinking for things like Tailwind, it gets automatically formatted, and
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
any like Alpine JS can be. You have the JS LSP inside there,
Yeah, yeah.
inside those little bits. But yeah, it's quite interesting at the moment, just sorting out the architecture now, and just getting all the the main loop sorted. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of doing work stuff, but also not kind of doing the main work stuff. I'm slacking a bit.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah.
Like I'm technically building something that I will be using in the future. So, you know, it is work.
Yeah.
It's just not what people need right now.
Yeah.
But last few days of work, so yeah, it was good to go through the essay, I think, and have people like seeing the chat on the side as well. I think yeah, reading essays is a great pastime. We always used to do it after 4 o'clock on a work day when I was working in a team because our brains would be fried by then. So we called it papers o'clock, and we just went through papers and interesting stuff. So I think yeah, if you could make it like a community
Yeah.
thing that you do often, I think people will get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Yeah. I feel like we will. There's so many articles to read, especially right now. It's like there's some geniuses out there just pumping the truth out.
Yeah, it's great to have. I think what you find with blogs and stuff is that you find your thought leaders, and it's different for different sectors.
Yeah.
For your low level languages, your higher level languages. So like for me, web dev, um, like I said, the Carson Gross and HTMX hypermedia kind of folks,
Yeah.
love their stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not everyone's bag, and that's fine. But if you can get the right blogs for the right people, and then get everyone who's interested in,
Yeah.
and also you can learn things from different disciplines.
Yeah, yeah. I think also like having people like you call in with different expertise is also awesome because it's like hearing the opinion of people in the industry that really know what they're doing is like really a great resource for anyone who's still learning here.
Yeah, and like it's always funny on like in a text message. I'll always say something as if it's like the hard truth, even though I really don't. Like with everything that is said, all opinions are like, well, this works for me. It's not always, and I think
Yeah.
it's quite difficult when if you're only interacting with people over text, then it will seem like you're right, you're wrong, and I'm right,
Yeah.
and you're just fighting against each other. When really, it's like okay, if I'm ever programming in that sector, I'll take that advice on.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, in like the stage environment on Discord, the server's going really well, and like having this more open discussion, and creating that environment, I think would be great for everyone.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, that's me.
All right, cool. I
Just
guess
I am about.
yeah, I guess I gotta call it unfortunately.
Yeah, no worries, guys. It was good to hang around with you guys and see that SO is pretty sick. So have a great evening. Oh, it's evening for me. Have a great rest of your days.
Yeah, see ya.
see ya.
All right. See you guys. 40 people watching. That was a pretty good stream.